All right. Okay, I think we're going to start the session. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Afiq Moahmmed, and I'm basically one of the project committees for the YSEALI Sharing a Vision project, which is supported by the US Embassy of Brunei Darussalam. It has been an honor for us, I think, having to organize and being part of this community. It has been very fruitful. We have seen a lot of young change makers from not just from Brunei, but also across ASEAN. So very exciting stuff. Together with us today, a few entrepreneurs and of course change makers and I would say educators, as the topic is about education. And we will learn more about their insights, their expertise, and things that we could definitely take in, for our own development and for the people around us. So with that, I want to quickly introduce, I think, basically the whole component of YSEALI Sharing a Vision. Basically, this platform, I will commence this session today. The platform will be dedicated to be a fireside forum where we invite the leading professionals from the variety field of education. What we will be learning more about is that from here we have three very amazing speakers who will be sharing more about their passion, their experience and challenges faced in their respective industry. We will also be sharing more about what are the kinds of mindsets, what are the kind of education, the different landscape, a variety of things that we could expect. So here, perhaps when we think about, education, we always thought about, okay, it has to start young. But sometimes we have to remember that education also revolves on a variety age groups. So again, with the challenge of the pandemic, it has definitely become a bit of a challenge for all of us. And hopefully we can see that we can play a bit of part in alleviating those issues. So the session for today is essentially open for those that are interested in learning more about how to adapt the future of learning during the pandemic. So with that, I want to quickly introduce our three speakers. Sorry, pardon me. But before that, I want to quickly introduce basically the Sharing a Vision project is organized by 5 of my team members. And we essentially want to make sure that there is a platform that will talk about basically the vision of the future, whether it's in the case for various industries. So there are two parts of sharing a vision. One part of it is we call it, which is this one that you are in. It's called Sharing a Vision Connect. And there's also an on-site event, which is called the Sharing a Vision Exploration. Of course, that will be held in Brunei Darussalam. But first, I want to say thank you again, everybody, for your support, for bringing in essentially this opportunity for us to share the variety of insights to the youth across ASEAN. So without further ado, I want to say a bit of a reminder first. Our team will keep you on mute. You may feel free to switch on your cameras and show your face. We'll definitely like to see your face as well and see, who is behind those screens. We also want to encourage you guys to pose any questions. Just put it up on our chat, and we'll do as much as we can to answer all of these questions. All right. So today we have a very diverse group of speakers from different countries and very different missions, I would say. Firstly, let's get into the heart of today's event. To hear from our amazing speakers, we have Mr. Cong-Thang. For short, we will call him Tang. He was a YSEALI mentor before, but I think there's more that he can share. So he derived from Vietnam. He is a co-founder and CEO at InnoLab Asia, an international advisor at Orphans Future Alliance Vietnam, in short, ORFA. He also was the founder at Lead the Change, youth and startups, which empowers them to step into the world with essential entrepreneurship, training, mentorship, and networks. We also have Diana Ramli, YSEALI Pro Fellow alumni from Brunei Darussalam. She's a financing specialist from Darussalam Enterprise and a YSEALI Pro Fellow based at the City of San Diego's Economic Development Board. So really fun stuff. We have very cool people here. And of course, last but not least, we have Vongrathayuth, Hingphith from Cambodia. In short, just call him Yut. All right, he's very popular with the YSEALI Futurepreneurs, I would say. So a lot of the youths are very keen to hear from him. So this is a very cool platform as well. So he was the co-president of the Southeast ASEAN Service Leadership Network and Development and Communication Manager of Teach for Cambodia. So basically that's an organization created to solve the problem of educational inequity by enlisting the country's most promising future leaders for a two-way transformational journey in public educational institutions. So phew, that's a very long description that I got. So yeah, let's just keep the whole conversation very light. Let's hear it from our own speakers themselves instead of me speaking. All right. So let's hear it from Mr. Tang. Let's hear from you. A bit of introduction, please.
Well, I think you already make a good introduction already. So hello everyone. My name is Tang. I was lucky enough that I work with a lot of young talent people and with different countries and industry. So if you have any question, I would love to answer it. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much, Tom. And let's proceed to Diana.
Hello, Assalamualaikum, everyone. I'm Diana Ramli from Brunei. I'm, as introduced by Afiq earlier, I'm currently working as a financing specialist at Darussalam Enterprise. So for the benefit of our fellows or colleagues who are not in Brunei, Darussalam Enterprise is actually a national SME body. So what we do, we help and support startups and SMEs. So in terms of what I'll be sharing today, it will be from the angle of how we help provide training or education to our startups and SMEs. Looking forward to this session today.
Well done. Thank you very much, Diana. And last but not least, let's have you to introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Afiq, for the introduction as well. I think you pretty much covered most of it as well. So hi, everyone. I'm Vongrathayuth from Cambodia, the current co-president of Southeast Asia Service Leadership Network. So as SAVConnect for short, we are focusing on incubating social projects and social innovations, focusing on providing mentorship to young leaders around Southeast Asia to lead the project of their dream by providing and supporting and developing curriculum. We recently have a project in Brunei not so long ago, and now it's evolving to Youth Arise. So it's kind of an exciting journey too. And with Teach for Cambodia, I'm currently the development and communication managers. But at Teach for Cambodia, we focus on supporting and developing young leaders who are interested or committed to actually work in the public education. So we provide pre-service and in-service support and trainings to youths as well as young leaders to actually make impact in public institution. So I will be sharing from an angle of like how pre-service and in-service development of teachers are currently look like and providing education by default to young students in Southeast Asia as well as Cambodia. Looking forward to the sessions.
Cool, very well done. I want to say thank you very much again to all the speakers for that very quick round of introduction. But yeah, I think we're going to go into the whole of the purpose for today. So I have a few questions that I prepared way earlier on, and I think when we talk about the future of learning, you know, it doesn't have to be too complicating. I think for the youths also, they have to figure like, wait, what am I going to be doing? What direction am I headed to? You know, there's always those questions. All right. So here, I think I want to quickly understand first and foremost, what is the situation? How is the education sector in your local community responding to COVID-19? I think just share with us, how is it in your respective countries? Let's start from you. I think in this case, yep.
Definitely. So I think, as everyone knows, most of our Southeast Asia countries are currently facing COVID. So on-ground situation has changed. In Cambodia in particular, school has become quarantine centers as well as treatment centers. So in-classroom activity has been shifted to distant learning. So the Ministry of Education has focused a lot in improving teacher quality to help cope with this particular situation. So the purpose and the focus of the ministry at the moment, a new policy, is to develop young and existing teachers to be able to be familiar with tool and technology to implement distant learning. And in the process, there are a lot of methods, a flipped classroom, as well as I think video podcasts to actually ensure that students are reached and actually able to receive support throughout this time. As well as education still continue, the role of teachers in education has greatly shifted from a person who deliver formal education in a classroom to person who adapt to distant education, distant teaching, where everything else is a combinations of like in-persons as well as like engagements through virtual spaces. So learning has now shifted a lot, and I'm assuming that in the next few years as well, even if the case of like the situation of COVID subside, the idea and concept of distant education and distant learning might remains. So that in the light of it all, I think it's very good for students to start slowly adapting to this as well.
Nice, thank you very much. I think that definitely gave a bit of insight on how the situation is there, from having basically having to utilize podcasts. People would usually think like podcast is just, something that you hear while you're busy doing something else, whether it's sports or, while you're just free. But I think now it has definitely become a suitable platform in the case for future of learning when you talk about it, right? We'll talk more about future of learning and the challenges after this. But yeah, I want to hear from Tang. How is the situation in Vietnam?
I think for the if we just share the situation is not covered enough for the home picture of the future learning. So let me describe a bit with the context, because for years people learning, but they don't know what they don't know, and they don't know what they are learning to. So let's talk about the context from the beginning, where we have abundance of resource, and we have let's say we have a lake full of fish, and at a time it's just like a one fisher, he can easily catch a lot of fish, and then at a time we have one seller and many buyers. So at that stage everything is easy. But then when many fisher, then it's come a bit competitive. But at this one, if you are the one that find a good location, you are on the front, easy for you to catch more fish, or you like some of the area that more fish. So at that time, then it's still more on like where is the advantage of other. But then it comes to another stage where the context is totally different. We have just a few places where we have fish. So at the time we have a lot of big boats that in line to catch the fish. And at this stage, people are taught by like running business is like a battlefield. You have to fight, you have to win. And this is a lot of sale and marketing, other stuff. And in order to win, you have to fight for other. But then the small area now is run out of fish, and the fish is running around. You cannot just like the big fish, and you cannot just be a big boat and run for a small fish. And at this time it's like a chaotic period, and it's actually reflect our situation now. We have many suppliers, we have many universities, we have many schools supply many courses and trying to attract the student. So actually, if you are like you want to learn at this time, what do you need? What kind of thing do you need to equip yourself? So in order to stay, so at this stage, you cannot just like find other people to win, because at this stage, you don't know what you don't know. They provide a lot of online, offline service. So how can you know it? So at this time, we need the collaboration. We need to find like, okay, this boat maybe do something to attract the fish. The boat, they focus on how to catch the fish. Another area, they need to push the fish into the area where everyone can catch, and then we divide it. So at this time, the collaborative spirit. It should be. And there is one sentence from Mr. Elvin Toffler. I'm not sure that you know it, but he's very famous. And he said this sentence: the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So actually, it's not just about like you read or you write. If you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know like how you unlearn yourself, so then you can observe other knowledge, you collab with other people, then you are dead. And the thing is that the context change. That's why we have to change ourselves. So how to change it? I think we can discuss this later. Thank you.
Nice, very well done. I think that's a really good point already. Just very strong start in this case. I definitely took note of that quote. I think really interesting stuff. The illiterate, basically in the 21st century, is not those who cannot read, but those who cannot learn or relearn, basically. So that's actually a really powerful quote. I definitely will take note of that. Now let's have it from Diana. Let's hear it. How is the situation in Brunei? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so as you know, Afiq, we had our first reported case in March last year. So as soon as the government heard it, so they made an immediate or drastic move by instructing all schools, institutions of higher learnings to close immediately. So that's when we impose social distancing learning. So everyone had to study and learn from home. In our case, at DARE, because we have programs that for our SMEs and startups, we have Industry Business Academy where we provide training for our startups and SMEs. Usually we never have it online. It's always physical classes, but that because of the pandemic, that forced us to have all the trainings using online. And then it just so happened that last year we awarded Coursera from the US as our training partner, online training partner. So we actually rolled out Coursera last year for our SMEs and startups for them to join any trainings, business related trainings for free. So it is still rolling out now. So we see a lot of improvements in terms of numbers. I think slowly people are trying to adapt the online learning now. So which is good. So other than that, I think another program that we have was is the Brunei Mentoring Network, BMEN. Also, when you do mentoring, especially Tang, you're a mentor. So it's always a physical mentoring. You like to see your mentee together with you. But because of the situation, we had to be creative. So what we did, we do similarly like what we're doing now. So we created a virtual mentor circles. So we invited our mentors to provide their mentorship through online via Zoom. So that's from me.
Nice, well said, Diana. So I think, as you guys can see, now there is a bit of pattern in our conversation, right? So we brought in a few key terms here. We talk about entrepreneurship. Why is it relevant for the education field, right? So the thing is, jobs are scarce now. And even what Tang mentioned just now is that even resources can be very scarce. Is everyone going into the same pool? We have to understand that resources can be very limited. So now I found out a few things. What we have picked up from the conversation, we talk about online learning, right? So in the case for future of learning, online learning is definitely something we must embrace, right? But there are people who don't embrace it, fairly speaking. So my question next would be, how effective is it? And I want to quickly jump into possibly my next question, yeah? Does this reshape our education system? Does it mean that the universities, the schools, they have to adopt this? Does any policy need to change? Perhaps you guys can give examples. I definitely want to hear from you guys. So perhaps let's hear it from youth first. I think youth, specifically in the education field, right in the heart of it. So yeah.
Definitely, this is a very good question. And I think just to link on the previous conversation as well, the future of learning has forever shifted. And one thing for sure, many of the countries in Southeast Asia, instead of walking toward digital educations, they have now see the urgency. And since school closes, this is where the changes in policy and implementation becoming more frequent and more adaptive, as well as like very, very gradual and drastic. I wouldn't say gradual, it's very drastic. The change is very drastic. From policymaker perspective, of course, the change of implementation policy, how schools are structured, evaluated, and support student learning has forever shifted into clearer understanding. It's not just student learning in general with like textbooks, but literally the methods of how teachers deliver, monitor, and manage classroom has changed too. You can actually just heard me earlier, I also shared about podcasts, combination of distant learning, using a flipped classroom. So teachers are now encouraged to explore the possibility of like different methods to actually fitting the context. So for ministry side, from like policymaker side, the overall conversation surrounding the teacher's development as a whole to adapt to the new context of learning. In retrospect, we can also see that the demand for like teacher quality development also equal changes in the upcoming education quality and education policies. Because not just that the PD changed, but the expectation of learning outcome from classroom will forever change too. We cannot assess students in the same way we used to. And of course, every teacher would miss, will miss face-to-face conversation, but now they have to adapt to a different approach. So true learning will now change. And one of the things that I think might be good to emphasize is the fact that in the 21st century skill, there's one section dedicated to learning ability, learning skill. And I would agree very much to Tang when he mentions the fact of like future illiteracy is not about reading and writing, but the ability to collaborate, ability to communicate. So with this situation of COVID, it's not about reinventing the wheel, but the wheel has been spent in a way that is faster than we expected. So many of the policy now are very focused toward what's next. It's no longer about like what's happening now. They're actually preparing themselves for a future where distant learning become a norm. Assessment are becoming very different, and teacher development become more drastic.
Okay, I think that's very cool. I picked up a few points, I think in the case for distance learning, right? So I think just on that note, I want to get Youth and I think for Tang's opinion as well on this one. Diana, feel free to chime in for this one because I'm thinking more towards the perspective of, in this case, the relevance. I think does the school and academic, do they have to update the curriculum? Because a really good point just now was about the learning outcome. So Tang, you mentioned about having to relearn ourselves, and Diana definitely within the field of entrepreneurship education and mentoring. So does that mean that the schools like how do they adjust this whole concept, this whole thing, education?
When we look at the situation now where a normal person wake up today, they're gonna bombard with the notification from Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, from YouTube, from a lot of application. And with the information like that, and with a lot of distraction around, so we with different strength and witness, and the university, they come with the challenge that the mass training will not fit with everyone now. So the term that I want to remind is that we should personalize the training. And now the study, it should focus on self-learn, unlearn, relearn. And for the self-learn, they need to at first have their own motivation, and they need to find that to improve themselves. Because the courage or the force from outside is just like the support is not from the force from ourselves. If we don't have we are not motivated to learn, to improve ourselves, so we will not be relevant to the economic and political system, and then we will be left behind. So which means that for the challenge from the university and training organization, they have to personalize their training and their method so they can fit to each individual. But for the individual themselves, they need to self-learn. They need to self-lead themselves. They need to self-discipline. And then they can think of then they can think of, they lead others, they can influence others, they can communicate well, and they can help others. So which means that for the education for each individual, they should focus on themselves first. How is their self-awareness? How is their self-study? How is their self-understanding who they are? How they can self-lead themselves? How they can be self-disciplined, so then they can keep the motivation and they can make things happen. So this is kind of the challenge, not just from those who provide the service, but those who receive the service.
Cool, well said. I think that's a very good point altogether. Yeah, Youth and Diana, do you guys have anything to chime in for that?
Yeah, I think just from the perspective of curriculum developers, right? I think I have to agree with Tang as well. This is the essential elements. We cannot put a standardized test or qualification anymore moving forward. So there's a clear understanding that this will forever shift. You can't just use a test to measure everyone anymore. But at the same time, from curriculum perspective, we will actually have to reinvent a lot of things to fit that context. And the curriculum now, if we were to look at the 3 core elements of like how students learn, right? Attitude toward learning, key knowledge, and also skill. One of the key things that would be currently being focused on is the attitude part, shifting the student mindsets from where we consider you actually have to conform. It's this amount of freedom of choice. You are actually you own your own learning. And in order for you to actually fully utilize this curriculum, this content of this training on skill, you need to actually understand the beginning and the end goal of your own journey. Students actually have more independent now, but we are currently concerning whether or not if our curriculum are able to establish or set the baseline on how we can help students to have that mindset try over to the new curriculum, the new implementation. And I think this is an interesting conversation, knowing moving forward as well, like a university gonna have a difficult time accepting university students because the accepting requirement will change drastically. And secondly, the graduating requirement will also change. So we are looking at the world where a lot of uncertainty, but at the same time, a lot of potential and opportunities for students to actually take ownership of it. We need to actually also focus on how we can help them shape that type of mindset earlier on. So a lot of things like has been going back to how teachers teach as well. So it's all like bits and pieces of information, but I do agree that we are now looking at more like less standardized testing, less standardized qualifications, more on like a freedom of choice and building people competencies to fit the future workforce.
Nice. I think that's a really well said. So I picked up quite a few things there. I think in the case like reinventing and having to adapt, right, the whole policy, and having the making sure that the key knowledge and skills are still relevant and suitable, because again, the economy is still ongoing. It doesn't have a break, right? So I want to give this opportunity, I think, for Diana, because I think looking towards the field of working with entrepreneurs, like do the within the education for the entrepreneurship scene, right? Does it mean that how does the students, like want to start learning how to do their own business, how they want to become developers? I think in this case, the pandemic has made definitely a challenge for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in Brunei, although we can have 100% physical classes, even at schools or at work. So I think we're adapting what we call blended learning now. So it's both physical and online learning. In terms of curriculum, what we have previously, definitely we have to shift or adjust a bit. We have to add more digital or IT related content to it, so that we want to make sure these startups or SMEs, because they're probably used to very manual bookkeeping, for example. And then what we have come up recently is doing bookkeeping through a digital platform, for example, Zoho Books. So yeah, definitely agree with the youth and Tang. In my context, the curriculum, definitely we have to improve and adapt to our current situation.
That's really nice. I think how I can definitely see this is that like, I think there's two ways in the case for education. It's either for the students to meet with their industry expectation, or for the industry to help adjust it back forward. But throughout the whole thing, the bridge of education, whether it comes from the government or maybe organizations, still plays an important role in this case. So I think that's really cool. I wonder quickly look into our chat box. There's one question derived from Brunei actually. So there's Shah, hi Shah, from MOE Brunei. This question would play more so for, I think, possibly youth and Tang. I think you guys can answer this one. In Myanmar, though, I think looking towards the ASEAN context, yeah. In Myanmar, how do you measure students' competency when doing online learning, so that they are still equipped with future workforce, future workforce? Okay, so the question is in the chat. If you guys want to read, how do you measure students' competency when doing online learning? I see Tang unmuting himself, so let's give it to him.
Thank you, Afiq. I think hello, Shah, right? Hello, Shah.
Hello.
I think it's not just about like how do you measure the competency, but it's more on you should define is that what is the competency of yourself, and that competency can help you to make your work more productive, efficient. So let's say for competency skill, we can talk about like critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, and other skill stuff are like how you can manage your emotion, for example. And in that kind of context, you have to make sure that you learn from it, and you have to have the environment to practice this. I just have one project, the Women research on the Women SME entrepreneur research, and one of the staff is from Myanmar. Her English is perfect, I have to say that. And how can she get a job? The job is from Singapore, and she worked with a team from Singapore, and then we conduct from Singapore, we conduct research from Vietnam, Singapore, and Korea. And she have a chance to improve that. And she shared with us the situation is that currently in Myanmar is there some obstacle in terms of the political system. And the job that she is working in Myanmar is limited to her, and it's hard for her to work there. So she looking for the opportunity online. And she said that at first it's very hard for her to do it. But when she showed that, this is how she improved. What skill that she already have, and this is the experience that she been here. And she learned all of these things, and she shared her story. Then she got the opportunity. So instead of you ask like how to measure the student competency, you should define like what is competency that the market needs, that is fit to the area that you want to work for. And then from there, please try to learn from it and find the environment to practice, to be the intern to join. The opportunity is not just from your country. It can be from Vietnam, can be from Brunei, can be from Myanmar, can be from Cambodia, can be from anywhere. And you just need to search for it and to make sure that you define the competency for yourself, not the student competency, the competency for yourself. Because the term that I share from the beginning, this is the personal study, and we need to personalize our study so then we can fit from our core value to the market. It's not just like we are the very low level worker anymore. We need to compete with the machine that can do like the task that our grandfather did. We need to think of something else, whereas we have the advantage, or otherwise we will be irrelevant to political and economic system, and from there we will be left behind. So define that for ourselves. Don't define for general like a student stuff. No.
Nice. I think that's really good. Thank you very much for the question, Shah, and thank you very much, Tang, for that for the answer. Again, I want to remind everyone, if you guys want to post any questions, feel free to do so. It's really what I've captured, I think, from Tang is that based on the question from Shah, she was trying to figure out how we could measure the competency. I think in this case for the students, right? So now what Tang has mentioned is that it's not limited into a room anymore. You gotta get out. You perhaps not get out. It's very tough, COVID. Okay, we have to remember that. But perhaps, going out virtually, perhaps, so you have outreach. I think that is what I can definitely hear from Diana just now, that education doesn't just now limit face-to-face. You definitely have to go out and meet people. So yeah, any other opinions to share from Diana and Youth before I proceed to the next question?
I think in the case of Myanmar, I would say that they're actually facing a lot of other situation and issues. And of course, even prior to COVID, prior to the coups, there was already an inequality toward like different ethnicity group where they can have different access to education. As I remember, I think they have a large reform for educational policy prior, I think somewhere around 2016. And they should be recapping their result in 2021. Hence, I'm assuming that there's a lot of changes in the system there. But in an overall perspective, I think they are more worried about access to education, where now COVID has actually hit a stop for a few of the schools and regions. So I think like at the moment, just like Tang said, like from where I get is that students or individual interest in personal development is very essential at the very moment where the student actually need to be very independent, in this case of COVID, to seek for additional learning opportunity as much as possible. And I don't think this case will apply just to Myanmar, but in Southeast Asia in general, to be prepared for the workforce. As we're actually preparing for a new generation of students who graduate during the COVID period, they will actually have a different level of skill set and mindset toward what learning look like. So it's actually something interesting to see, because students now are very used to getting training, workshop, participating online, where when in comparison, personally speaking, when we were younger, we just so stuck to formal educations, going to school, learning from teachers, and we are quite limited to that particular options. Whereas now, where students are encouraged to actually lock in and learn throughout this whole process, I can see that there's going to be a lot of changes in terms of like how the culture of learning will evolve through the process here. But of course, in case of many countries in Southeast Asia, not just Myanmar, I think access to education is still a major issues, and it's currently being addressed differently from country to country. Even in Cambodia, we're trying to get device to a low resource community, but I think like every country would have a different role to play to ensure that students have access. And with those access, it's come the individualized curriculum, personalized learning journeys, and things like that become along the way.
Nice. I think that's a job well done. I think you have shared quite a few points on basically the access to education. It varies from different location to location. And of course, you mentioned about the culture of learning. It definitely has changed all throughout. It's not a location based. It's changing all throughout the globe, right? Okay, so I want to move forward from here on. We talk about access to education. Now, there are several challenges for this. One of it is internet connection, all right? One of it is mental health, okay? Something we can definitely share about. Personal challenges or ability. So how someone learns about education varies from one person to another, okay? And there's also time management. Time management, again, different location, different time zone. How do you ensure that education online is fruitful and we could basically get the key knowledge into it? One of the components is being easily distracted. Yeah, sometimes having us to stay online on a call would be a bit tiring as well. Other components would be family members making studying difficult. Again, COVID is not, is not forgiving. It's a huge problem, right? And lastly, the interactions between lecturers and students, it become reduced. All right. So here, I think I've listed down quite a few points. I've gathered these points earlier on, but I think let's talk about it one by one. I think Diana has shared earlier on about connectivity, how important it is to meet people in person. But do you think that in this case, how about the mental health of the youth nowadays, right? Think about being entrepreneurs, even before being entrepreneurs, right? Having to figure their career. Oh my goodness, might be a bit of a challenge. So how do you think we should, consider that factor?
Yeah, thank you, Afiq. You definitely highlighted one of the issues that we encounter in terms of facing the COVID-19 challenge. With regards to SMEs who are working from home during COVID period, that's why we set up the virtual mentor circles. This platform that we provided is for these SMEs or businesses actually share their problems or issues with the mentors. From there, they're not just keeping the problems by themselves, and then with the technology, they can actually share their issues with these mentors. These are usually our experienced professionals. They're successful businessmen. So just to offer them resources, guidance, supports, and motivations. But I definitely see in terms of, I mentioned we have the Coursera online training. Although we have a lot of people subscribing to it, registering to it, but in terms of completing, it's also a challenge because like you mentioned, there's a lot of distraction if you're doing it at home. So what we do now, even personally, I subscribe to many online training, but I can't actually, most of the time that I can't complete. So what we do now, we try to book ourselves, like with a group of my colleagues, we book a meeting rooms. That's how we encourage our startups or SMEs. So we have our facilities. So you can do it together at a certain time, do it online, because we allow physical classes now. It's just that for them to be physically learn and give support towards each other when they do it together instead of just doing it from home, just on your own. So yeah.
Thank you. I think that's really cool, because I think what you mentioned is a very strong factor, which is building a community. So sometimes when you work with people, right, like we took this for granted for sure. Communities are not to be underestimated, so motivation can come from your peers. And of course, to complete even an online course, you need some nudge from your friends. I think I want to,
Can I add some point, Afiq?
Yep.
Because this one, I think is very very important. So that's why I want to add some more. So my advice to those who easily get distracted is that pay attention to your attention. Because let's be, let me make like a one clear example. Let's say if you trying to find a job in accounting, so then you focus on if your friend talking about accounting, then you will listen to it, or like someone posts a job about accounting, you will focus on that. But normally for the accountant part, you didn't pay attention, and this attention will try out focus, and then from that focus try out action. So then what my advice is that pay attention to your attention is a very you can write it, but the next thing you do is that you block from your calendar. So from my phone here, for example, I have my own calendar like this. Like in the morning I can have my meditation, and then I have my weekly running, for example, and then I have another meeting, and then I have something playful time with my nephews, and then I have this event, and in the afternoon I will have a team meeting with my tech team, for example. So I log everything here to make sure that I have the activity that on my focus, and then I calculate it every week. Like if I say that I want to build like a 2 company at the same time, and when I log my week and I calculate at the end of the week, and I found that, well, actually I just focus on 1 company, and how about the work for other company? And then we will know the same thing for our work, or like our entertainment or our skill development. If we just focus, if we just say I'm gonna improve it, and we don't have action on it, and you don't calculate your time to focus on it, for sure nothing will improve. So action, it should be calculated, and it should be monitored by your calendar, and it should be strictly followed by your discipline. And this thing, I log it for myself. Those here, any one of you learn Duolingo, I learned French for more than 700 days continuously before I lost in the project, and I forget for like a few days. When I got back, I turned up into the 0 day. But just to tell you that in order to make like a more than 700 days continuously, I have to be very disciplined every day for 15 minutes. And from that, people said that I cannot do it like for 3 months, but I did it because I log everything, and from the calendar it's remind me, and then I do it. So this is my recommendation. Pay attention to your attention.
Nice, well said. I think that's a very good tool, I think, to share as well, and a good habit actually. So keeping things consistent is very valuable. I think this is something that, again, you know, your teachers might remind you, hey, you gotta keep note of things. Hey, you gotta remind yourself, did you schedule this? Did you schedule that? So learning doesn't stop. If you think that learning, you know, basically stops until you know, academy, then actually this also applies for work. You have to remind yourself, you have to use various tools. So that's really cool. But thank you very much for that, Tang. Actually, I want to give an opportunity. I think there was a question from a student, I think, from Polytechnic Brunei. So the question, I think I want to pass this over to you. Yeah. The concept of virtual learning, yeah, does increase social anxiety issues. How do you tackle this type of situation? Now, let me just give a bit of a context here as well, right? So social anxiety also means that, you know, when you want to meet somebody, sometimes you don't know how to act. And, you know, of course, you want to make sure you're in a safe environment. And sometimes when you hear feedback from people, you don't know how to respond to that. I think I want to see, what are your thoughts on it? Like, how does, from the educator's perspective on this, how does one tackle such issues?
This is actually an interesting question too. I think maybe I can link it back to what Tans and Diana just mentioned earlier, most of which are the concept of adult education. So in adult learning, community learning practices, selection of choices, applicable skill that you learn and then you apply in workplace immediately are all essential. But one of the key things that might relate to the next question is the concept of like social space and community purposes. When you are actually locked into a learning community, the concepts are very different from a social community or social group. I think as young adult, we actually have the concept of like, I think in working term, we are not wearing the right hat, or we might not be sure what hat we are wearing when we are engaging with certain group. Hat is a type of personality and mindset that you bring into a conversations that is actually quite essential to drive certain conversation forward. If I were with my friends, the conversation would not be about education, but about personal matter, life, like progressing in life. So when we want to meet friends and when we want to learn, seem to be very different. If you want to learn, you're locked on, and you actually just actually focus on learning. But now, when even meeting friends becoming also a process of locking on, so it's like the shifting and changing and how we engage socially have drastically changed, and also slowly merging with how we learn and how we work. The concept of social anxiety become more frequent because you're finding it hard to switch between one certain hat to another. What should you perform and what should you do in certain situations? And it's actually, I think like one of the things that you can do to tackle all of that is to actually be very clear the purpose of the conversation you are walking into. Because a quick preparation, a quick mental preparation before certain conversation is actually very helpful. And worry not that sometimes it's okay to change from one to another or get confused in a certain way. But it's very important to know that I'm walking into this space because I actually looking for learning. I'm looking for a community of practice. But if you walk into a different phase, like, oh, I'm walking into space just to relax, to chill, to listen to how my friend's life is going, to get connected, to feel inspired. So the mental preparation for each of the conversation is actually important. And of course, sometimes you need to be aware of your social energy. I think this is a concept we practice very frequently. It's like human beings have 4 to 5 different types of energy. Your physical energy, your emotional energy, your mental energies, your spiritual energy. And I think the new concept also includes social energy, where like whether or not you are well prepared to engage in social activity, to have fun, when you are so mentally drained, when you are so emotionally drained, all those energy are related to one another. But one thing that you can prepare yourself for is that knowing clearly the level of energy you have before engaging in certain conversation in virtual space is essential. Like today, I'm coming in with like high mental energy and emotional energy. You can see me smiling all the time. And I think Afiq has already known that every time I'm coming to an event, I need to prepare my energy beforehand. Just like Tang said, I know my schedule, and each schedule requires me to give what energy. So if next I have to run, my physical energy has to be ready. So after this, I'm going to have lunch and then moving on to doing some exercise. So be mindful of your energy and be mentally prepared for virtual space, going to help you navigate through this whole situation a bit better too.
Job well done. I think that's a really good thing to cover. What I can definitely pick up from there are a variety of tools. So I definitely want to thank you as well for that. Having to understand the different types of energy, there's spiritual, there's physical, mental, and the new additional one, social energy. How about that? You see? So some of that, the thing is sometimes we might forget that we have to switch on sometimes, right? We have to switch on our mode. Like when we talk to different people, it requires different sets of energy. When we spend different types of energy, say physical for sports, okay, a coach will tell you to do 110%, but you could do, a few percent. So yeah, I think really fun stuff. I think really good contents. Now, I want to thank everybody for their questions. I think we're almost coming close to the session. Time flies really fast. And I think as you mentioned, lunch. Okay, so lunch is not served here. So lunch is served where you guys are at. Unfortunately, I can only give you guys like some recommendations of nice places everywhere. But yeah, I want to just quickly close in the session with a few highlights that I've gathered from all the speakers. So I think the first one, I think a really good quote shared by Tang, I think in this case about the illiterate of the 21st century is not those that cannot read or write, it's those that cannot adapt and relearn, basically. So that's a really good point. I also want to highlight other factors such as the, I think what Diana has shared earlier regarding building a community. I think that's very crucial. So the people that has the same mindset as you can either motivate you and also help you finish that class. Sometimes we definitely need that push. So that shouldn't be underestimated. I think something that we also need to pay attention, as Tang mentioned, pay attention to your attention. Sometimes we might lack that, so something that we have to observe. Youth has mentioned several items. I think in this case, have to understand what the types of energy that you have. Spiritual, physical, mental, social, those are really important components. It's also that how do we understand what are the specific key learnings, the learning outcomes? Is that still what the school, the university is still looking at? So I think this poses a question, I think, to academics, to the government as well. Are we fitting in for the youth in this case? For Diana, I think a really cool thing I want to highlight as well, because I think in this case, she's more working with the entrepreneurs and that on the latest stage for the professional developments for the youth. I think some of the components she mentioned is that we need to know that the importance of distant learning. All right. So again, having to learn wherever you guys are, we have to adapt. It's not about meeting your mentors or coaches in person now. How do you still give value for your economy, for the people around you? And I think how do you make sure that it's valuable? All right. So yeah, I think with that, I want to end the session. I want to thank you, of course, to the US Embassy for giving us this opportunity. The speakers, of course, no doubt, I think for you, for Tang, and also for Diana, you guys have really concluded really cool stuff. I hope this brings a lot of ideas and inspiration to the youth, to the young generation, and of course, for those that are channeling in this chat. There are many areas which we can address specifically in the areas of education and of course professional development, future of learning. There may be some way to go, but I can definitely assure you that we are definitely on the right path as long as we work together on this one. So with that, I want to say again, thank you to some of for those that are participating in our call. We're going to do a very quick group photo. Yeah, even my colleague was mentioning it. A group photo. So everyone, if you guys can just switch on your camera and just, yeah, show us your pretty face or handsome face. I see some of the students from my workshop today. Actually, more of them and some friends. All right. Nice. Okay. More faces, more faces. Smile. Okay. I'm gonna... Okay, I think my colleague's gonna take the photo, all right? Okay, I think with that, if you guys are ready, wow, you guys are going in groups, job well done. This is how we do education and virtual learning. So perfect style. Anyways, yeah, 3, 2, 1. Smile, guys. Let's give it a bit of peace. I see Asmat there with a P, so let's do that. All right. Okay, so I hope those enough photos, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I think my team said, yeah, I think good photos. I want to conclude the session. Again, I want to say thank you very much, everybody. Please do follow us on our social media, on Instagram. We have more events and projects coming in, but as you know that this event is recorded, we'll definitely share it on our social media. If you guys want to find out more about our programs and our speakers, to let us know. We'll definitely hook you guys up. All right, with that, once again, thank you very much, everyone. I'll see you guys again. Bye. Wow. Thank you. See you guys.
Yeah.